great for
pattern
lower
for
volume
nuts. You're not locked into
use cases where you don't want to start off by paying a couple $100 a month. You know, if you're a large enterprise and you're doing billions of API calls per month,
it's still
you're probably just going to stick with the existing plan, the standard plan you have.
I think it's cool.
But that consumption plan is very good for very elastic cases, and particularly good for people that are just getting started and don't want to have to pay up front for something that they're not going to fully use.
Right, that's amazing. All right, next question.
Look at the boogie spray mode. I did not get the boogie spray mode, man. I had no time to go to Walmart to pick it up. I mean, I knew that was coming.
The VS Code editor was written from the ground up. So the core development tool was all written from the ground up. Having said that, we have leveraged things like Roslyn, which is our language service, the debugging,
I have no idea it's whatever
engine hooks inside VS, and several of the other services.
That's
so
terrible, dude.
Those places we've reused some code. And we built it in such a way that we just have one team build one module and it can be used to build VS ID and VS Code. Right. So we don't have two separate teams building the same thing. The core VS Code itself was reused from the ground up.
Yeah, I'm starting to remember now because I had Eric Dama on where he explained like Roslyn is running out of process in this thing called OmniSharp, and when you build extensions, that's why it's so zippy, everything's running
Well.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about the Roslyn or the VS Code architecture is, you know, again, what we're also doing inside VS now.
I love
because you can run extensions out of process. It also just means that extensions tend not to conflict with each other. Yeah. Or frankly, more specifically, when an extension screws up, it's really easy to identify which extension.
I have the purple P90.
And you know, I think we've seen other development tools and even VS has worked in the past. You get one extension that slows everything down, and it kind of gives everyone a bad rap, and developers aren't sure why something is slow. And you know that out-of-process model helps versioning, it helps reliability, and it also really frankly helps from a performance perspective, both be fast, but also identify which extension is not.
Current activity, Deck 2018 CA, Framework, Linux Route, Ubuntu, Basic Applications, Hello Multiverse.
I mean, it's very subtle, but it's also very nice, as opposed to years ago in Visual Studio when an extension went rogue. It's like, why is Visual Studio taking 40 gigs of memory? You know, and
I think it's weird that Visual Studio wants to be #1.
All right, next question. When are you planning to release Visual Studio 2019? Everyone always asks this question.
They said like,
the standard answer.
We're almost there. And everyone's like, you can't let that happen. You can't let them take away our
my guess is it'll
#1.
be in 2019.
The granddaddy, the main granddaddy.
Sign Your Name by Terrence Trent D'Arby.
We mustn't let it happen.
Today is the first preview. Right. And so, you know, we're going to be looking at features that are ready, and then know.
I mean, he literally just gave me donated $6,000 and said subscribe to PewDiePie.
You know, that ability to have both.
Extremely different guys. I'm at the Red
easy starters. One of the things that we showed in the keynote this morning is our Azure cognitive services, which is one of the easiest ways to start with AI.
You made it all the way over.
And we have a whole bunch of pre-built components that do speech
Where am I
to
getting shot
text,
from?
video transcription, run that AI model doing computer vision on the device, you can do that in real time and save yourself a bunch of money. And while being able to use that too. debugging individual components, but sharing resources. So it's great from that perspective. I don't, I think we might at some point enable dev spaces with Azure
Was
Stack.
aber noch nicht gibt, sind die Items,
But
die generell
if you just want to run locally, you can use the standard Kubernetes tool to do that. And we do support that in VS, right? But the real magic with dev space I'm a big believer in show don't tell, right? And so watch, forget the keynote speaker.
There was some
he was okay, but
really good demos.
But the demos were very good. Yeah,
so good.
And it's nice that everything we showed you can now download and we look forward to building it.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for our next guest. Thanks so much for being with us. Scott, we actually have Brendan Burns over there to explain Kubernetes to all of us.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Thank you so much.
All right, so I get to pick up my fancy water bottle with a straw and come over here to talk to the awesome Brendan Burns. I'm excited to ask him a lot of questions because I know about Kubernetes, but I don't know enough. So you're going to help me with that, is that right?
Try our best.
All right, so tell us about yourself for those that have been living under a rock.
Well, I don't even know if it's living under a rock. So I'm Brendan Burns. I'm one of the co-founders of the Kubernetes open source project. Kubernetes is a container orchestrator. It's basically a way of taking a whole bunch of computers and joining them together into a single shared resource, and then using those resources to deploy a wide variety of containers to put together what has been come to known as cloud data. And then I work for Azure, obviously. And they're, in addition to the Azure Kubernetes service, you just heard about with Scott. I work on actually, I run a bunch of other teams that deal with sort of DevOps and APIs and open source, a lot of open source on Azure.
So I know there's a lot of devs that have heard about Kubernetes, and maybe I'm in this camp where I need to know a little bit more. How did you come up with that name? Or how did that name even come up, Kubernetes? I mean, it sounds like a future thing.
It wasn't me. It was one of my co-founders, Craig McLucky. We've talked about this a little bit, but the project was originally called 7 of 9. So the original
I'm pretty good at faking out people, man. Get shots. I appreciate the tip, man.
It's like the Borg collective.
That seems more apropos, I think.
And so 7 of 9, if you've ever watched Star Trek Voyager, which is the way of admitting that I watched too much Star Trek. Oh my God. 7 of 9 is like the Borg character in Star Trek Voyager. And so I originally called it 7 of 9 as the code name. And then it became Project 7, or as these names iterate, these code names iterate. And then we had to launch, and we needed a launch name. And we were thinking a lot, Craig actually was thinking a lot about, well, we were all sort of batting words back and forth. Craig was driving to work, as he called it. And he was thinking, well, what does it do? And Docker sort of had all of these sort of nautical, you know, like the whale, and they had like, so there's a lot of sort of marine analogies going on. So he's like, well, it's like the person who drives the ship. Kubernetes is like the person who drives the ship. And so he looked up helmsman, the word helmsman.
Wow, man, that was
Greek.
just...
And
13 out of tilted, huh?
we actually pronounce it wrong. I think if you're actually Greek.
Yo, little boom, another 5 gifted subs, man. 88 total to the channel, just 12 away from the big fat 1-0.
Yeah, everyone's, it's our fault. So that's, and it stuck.
I don't even know where to go to get it
from there. And it turns out, in retrospect, it's actually also the root of cyber and cybernetics. So the word cyber actually comes from Kuber in Greek. And it totally looks like we planned it, but we totally didn't.
No, we're going to delete this in post because you totally planned it.
Yeah.
So with the advent of this new kind of technology recently, there's a lot of terms floating around. I'm hoping you use Kubernetes for the cool. There's like, we have Kubernetes, we have images, we have containers, we have Docker. Could you make sense of that for us? I mean, help us out.
Yeah, I mean, so I thought maybe we would do a little whiteboarding.
Let's do it.
If that works.
Yeah,
so
let's go to the screen
let's go to the screen here. Hopefully this will show up. You know, I'll turn it a little bit so you can see there. But hopefully we're broadcasting this out to everybody.
Are you on a Surface Go right here?
I am on a Surface Go.
And you're doing like a distributed computing.
I love my Surface Go.
Man, this is my life, man.
I walk to work a lot, and like the fact that it's a pound and a half. Like,
We'll think of the 500 bits. Appreciate it. Thank you.
A container. There's actually sort of two parts of the container. There's the image.
I love code, man.
And then limited by the fact that you've placed it in the same container as your database and you can't scale your database, right? So generally you would say, you know what, I want to separate the web serving tier from the database because I want to have 10 copies of my web serving tier.
The fact that
Right, and then there's functions as a service, which is a programming model, event-driven, on-demand. It's a way of and tooling, easy-to-use tooling makes it really easy for you to take a piece of code and push it up into the cloud.
Practice.
So I think it's important to distinguish between those two things. I think that
you know what I mean? Like there's no
being really great for
quick learning tips when you're playing the mouse with the keyboard. It's like saying you've never played basketball.
Or like, hey, you know, something asynchronous happened on some queue. Somebody uploaded a file.
It's like learning how to walk, man. You just gotta walk. You know what I mean? It's.
I think
just start practicing.
Containers are more oriented towards longer processes or large-scale serving, where you have
Eyes Without a Face by Billy Idol.
Second, and you just need to have something that's running all the time. That's a place where containers are useful. I think ultimately when we look at the apps of the future, what we're going to see is people are building with a mix of containers, functions as a service, and data stores like Project and those sorts of things. Right?
So when we're talking about Azure Container Instances, that's what you're talking about, containers as a service.
Yeah.
But then that begs the question, if you have hundreds of those things that you're spinning up, how do you manage them together? And then now we can get into the
and that's Kubernetes, and in fact actually today we just announced the preview of virtual nodes for Kubernetes, which basically takes that serverless
Eyes Without a Face Camillo. Currently playing song is
orchestration. So you can actually orchestrate the serverless containers using the Kubernetes APIs. So you can either decide, do I want to deploy containers to VMs or do I want to deploy containers to the serverless container infrastructure?
That's amazing because then you don't have to worry about, like, because usually, with the first time I set up Kubernetes, and I did one time, and I think I went through the tutorial, like all good people do. I had to set up VMs to do stuff.
Yeah.
But with this, there's no VMs.
There's no VMs. It's all Azure servers. It's all in Azure servers, and there's no, we do all the upgrading of the OS. We run the OS for you. If the machine fails.
Can I choose like a machine that has a GPU?
We have GPU in Azure Container instances, not in the virtual nodes currently.
Okay.
But yeah, it's coming.
All right, let's take a look.
All right, cool. So I have a simple little YAML file here. So one thing you'll see actually is YAML. So when I see here, I'm describing the containers that I'm going to run.
And this is the file, I'm sorry to interrupt you, just so I want to understand. This is the file that says, here are all the images that I want to run in this.
Yeah, I'm at Blob,
well, in this pod, which is one replica of your application. Okay. So this is only just running a single instance, not running multiple. There are other primitives for creating 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
We didn't hang out.
We'll talk about those in just a second.
More like
Alright, so first we're going to create this pod.
And what this is doing is this is getting all of those image definitions.
Someone just gives it 100 subs? How did I miss that?
It's actually, it's actually making a declarative state. A declarative statement to the cluster saying,
I don't even know.
I want this to be better, right? And so then, having done that, if we can
Leute, 4 Leute, ich glaube,
you can see it doesn't have this one application that's been running.
So this basically, when you create it, it's getting all of those images, creating containers,
Downloads
running
them.
it.
Yeah. Runs it on the.
And then the pod represents like a logical unit of containers.
Yeah, and the reason it's multiple containers is you might have an application container, and then you might have a container that's doing something like log forwarding. So it's reading the log off the application.
Good evening.
So then
Tiny Tora, good evening.
For sort of debuggability, including the ability to port forward. So that server is running. It's not on the internet, but it's running on port 80. And actually, if we go back over here, you can actually see. You can see its IP address. So there's its IP address, which is inside the cluster. But then I can actually port forward it, which means that I'm going to port forward traffic from my local machine here out into the cluster, so that I can play around in my application without it being exposed to the internet. But I can do development, I can push it up, I can run it, test it without it being exposed to the internet.
That's cool. And while that's going, just a quick question. Because I've been able to do like Docker run and be able to port forward, so I could expose it. This is more like Docker run, but with multiple images.
And well, no, but more importantly, connected to the cloud. Okay. This container is executing in an Azure database. And so the port forwarding is bringing the network from the Azure data center down to the local machine here. So this is a little, this is the QAR demo, which is the Kubernetes up and running book that I wrote with Healthy Hightower and Joe Beta. It's kind of a way of exploring some of the features of Kubernetes. And in particular, we can go over here and take a look at this live distro. So one of the ways that Kubernetes makes it easier to run these distributed systems is it will automatically restart your application if it fails, right? And not just if it crashes, but actually if you define it as being unhealthy. And the way you define it as being unhealthy is you can say, hey, please hit this web input. If I return 200, I'm healthy. If I don't return 200 or I don't return anything, I'm unhealthy, and I want you to terminate me, right? And because that's good because maybe you get deadlocked or you get overloaded or something bad happens. Your process is still running, but you're not successfully processing web requests.
And you won't get like some beeper in the middle of that.
Right, and so you don't want to get this page and all sorts. You want the automation. The one way to think about this is, there's planes out there that
part of the product,
like you just literally fly them, and then there's things like like the B2 Stealth. There's a computer. The only way that thing stays in the air is because there's a computer driving. Right. Kubernetes is sold out online. There's a computer that's trying to keep your application healthy for you. So we can actually drop back over here.
Tweet it at me.
after you download this configuration file, and the configuration file gives you like the certificates and check your AAD for accessing it and the IP address and all that stuff. And then once it's done, but it's through AZ. You say the AZ tool, you say AZ get credentials.
New Windows 98 gaming computer. Now when I say I'm building a new computer, I don't just mean another one. I'm building an all-new computer from unused 20-year-old parts. It took me about 2 years and a lot of patience to get all these parts, but the case is what really made me want to do this in the first place. This is a new in-box Inman Q500. Since 1999, it's been waiting to realize its potential as the over 2-foot tall full-height tower that it is. This is my all-time favorite computer case, and I was very surprised when I was able to find one new in box. So I knew I had to do something special with it. Combined with the Windows 98 anniversary, it made for the perfect theme for a new build, an all-new Windows 98 PC. So I set out to find authentic parts for a period-correct Windows 98 PC. A CPU, motherboard, RAM, video card, keyboard, mouse, hard drive, sound card, disk drive, floppy drive, newer floppy drive, network card, USB card, front USB card, webcam, microphone, speakers, gamepad, joystick, floppy disk holders, and of course, a sealed copy of Windows 98. However, I did make one exception to the period-correct parts, a new EVGA power supply. I would rather use a new one that doesn't quite fit the theme than an old one that's probably gone bad in its box. But now the anniversary is here and it's time to put the computer together. So let's take a look at some of the most discrete GPUs and 64 megabytes of video memory. The two VSA 100 GPUs run an SLI on a single card. 3DFX is, of course, the company that created SLI. But before we try and put these parts together and make it toast, we need two more things. First, the new monitor. A typical VGA CRT that will easily support the now uncommon resolutions that this computer will be outputting. And secondly, the motherboard tray from the InWin case. It's a shame that this was never adopted as a standard. I suppose I'll also want the new power supply. Now that everything's out, let's begin the assembly with the motherboard. And next, the CPU. For the heatsink, I'm going to go ahead and not use the 19-year-old thermal pad that came attached to it, and instead opt for some better modern stuff. It feels kind of weird to put such a good modern thermal paste on such an old CPU. After locking in place the heatsink and snapping on the fan, I can put in the maximum of 512 megabytes of memory that this motherboard's 815E chipset will support.
Alright, so we just did health check. What was the next thing?
And finally, it's time to install the Voodoo 5. Now that all the basic parts are in, it's time for the smoke test. That's not good. After a little bit of testing, I've determined that the motherboard won't host with the Voodoo 5 installed. And if you look in install the motherboard drivers so we get all the built-in stuff. Alright, now that all the basic stuff is installed and ready, it's time to add in some more parts. There are still a lot of parts left to go. It would have taken a couple hours for me to fully show the unboxing of all 20 parts I'm doing.
No. It's totally cool. It's totally cool. No, I love it. I was a little bit bad because I feel
Das heißt, wenn du im Datenbank ordentlich was hergibt und unsere ganzen Discounter
Alright, so we created that demo with 5 replicas, and now we're using
download for both versions.
Oh, I'm enjoying Cali. It's actually been really chilly at night.
But what's new?
Like super windy and cold.
Great. So before we start about talking about Useful Mac, I'm going to call out all the previews. I mean, the announcements today are all live. We highly encourage everyone to go try them out. Here's our preview page. One of the things about Visual Studio and Visual Studio for will start showing up.
that complexity for me, so I can focus on my knowledge.
Mara, do you want to show some of the things you have in the room?
Sure, yeah. I mean, so I just want to kind of reiterate some of the things that Uni was talking about, but in the context of the Visual Studio for Windows
I could never do it.
version. So this, what you see on the screen right now is actually the Visual Studio installer. And
I know it well.
and I think for anybody who works at Microsoft, you know, we're constantly installing both the latest release and kind of the internal nightly builds.
Dog food.
Right, exactly.
Oh, yes.
So what you see here on my installer is that I actually have two internal builds. I have one for the latest Visual Studio 2017 update, as well as the 2019 preview. But this is basically the same exact experience that an external user would get. It's just they wouldn't see the little int there. But I needed to get this to get all the demos ready. I had to use the previews. I wasn't going to
I don't care what
installing everything.
So I can start installing
My wife's super into
Visual Studio 2019 on my stream. Like a
cold outside.
we can start live streaming on Twitch.
Today. Yeah. I mean, what's really great about this is, you know, when I talked to in fact, I was just talking with the development team, and we were talking about their process for adopting new tools. And typically, what they do is they, you know, pick a couple of developers on their team to kind of go scout it, right? And so those devs do maybe a little project to kind of go see what the tool looks like and come back and do a report for the rest of the team. But this makes it really easy because, you know, it used to be that you had to have kind of like a burner machine because you were too worried about it corrupting your developer environment. But now that we have the channels and we've done all of the work to kind of make sure that they can be updated independently, you're really not at risk to corrupt your dev box. Yeah. So that's thing one that's super cool. So now let's jump into 2019 itself. So as Uni was talking about a minute ago, we have the start window. So you can see, just like we showed in the Visual Studio for Mac experience, we also have a start window experience. And really there are two reasons that we did this. Number one is for users who are absolutely brand new to Visual Studio.
Current activity, Deck 2018 ca2 framework, Linux route, Ubuntu, core applications.
Drowning in complexity when they see the entire they kind of don't know where to start.
There's that intimidation of the blank screen. You open it up and it's just that gray background.
There's just a lot. It's not just a blank screen. I mean, we have the start page, but between the start page, there's just a lot of information density that's in there, and to be able to absorb all of that is kind of intimidating your first time out. The other thing that we heard from a lot of more junior and experienced developers is basically that the Visual Studio, when it was originally designed, you probably remember
Sorry
this,
seems to be the hardest word. In Bridgerton, the edge of reason by Rocketman.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But the result of that was that not only was the product entirely contained in there, but all of the documentation and all of the templates were contained in there. So it was really this like self-contained, package.
Zero users added to resident_mixercom.
We used to get sandwich boxes to store those discs in.
Zero users added to resident_Twitch.
All collector's items now, but they were also the books that came with it. I mean, you had like the whole getup was not just your machine; it was the entire, physical aspect of it.
That you brought with you. This is my Visual Studio.
I told you.
Nowadays,
Zero users added to resident_U2.
Modern development teams is that their startup experience, like when you're getting started on a new project or when you're a new developer joining, for the most part, they don't necessarily use our templates that are in box. They actually start with an online hosted repo, right? And so what we're trying to do with the new start window is to make it so that it's a lot easier to kind of get started with an online hosted repo, and that's kind of the most predominant experience that we encourage you to use, right?
Sure, because my team members, new team members, I want to point them, here's where we keep our code, go start over.
Right, exactly. And I think once you start to curate what kind of feeds you look at and other things like that, this is going to become really, really useful. But let's go ahead and actually try that. So let's clone or check out a repo. So I'm just going to copy this one.
Wollen ihre Produktlinien miteinander kommunizierbar zu machen.
And back here, and just clone it.
I think you just made it. It's sick. Thanks for showing that. I've seen the Ninja Pendant, man. It's dope.
Not like you've practiced this once.
I think it's what he gifted.
Right? Not at all.
No, apparently
yeah,
not
dude,
enough.
Agent I, thank you so much, bro. Appreciate it.
So what you can see here is that this is actually using the Team Explorer to actually connect to that GitHub context
I'm just gonna call you Agent.
and to actually
Thank you for
clone
20
that
gifted subs.
locally.
Someone in the chat literally said, Agent, gift me.
Right? So now you can see that it opens
If you're able to type that, that means he literally just gifted you a sub.
Ich will aber mit unserem Chatbot die Möglichkeit haben, unser vier Gewinn zu steuern. Das heißt, die Community hier sagt, die ganze Reihe soll jetzt euer Chip fallen. Das heißt, was ich brauche, ist, ich brauche einen Schnittstelle zwischen diesem DLC-Bot und meiner vier Gewinn. Ich will den DLC-Bot ja nicht in vier Gewinn implementieren als Code, sondern ich will ja mit implementieren lassen.
Yeah, so what we're really trying to do with Visual Studio 2019, I mean, I think a lot of people have seen in 2017 there have been pretty dramatic changes, right?
Those demos where, time to load.
Crush that workout, diamond,
Yeah, and live unit testing is dramatically improved. So what we've been trying to do is to do more things to be asynchronous and out of process in the And so what you're seeing here is that there are some things that are still running in the background, but that the project, you can actually go forward. You don't have to wait for anything before you actually kind of go ahead and get things going.
So is it doing things like looking at my NuGet packages or any of those?
Sure, I mean it's doing any kinds of things that it needs to do to initiate the project, but basically as soon as the project is loaded, the source code is loaded, and basically, we think it's safe for you to type. In other words, you will get the IntelliSense experience you need in the background, compilation experience you need, then we'll notify you to say, hey, go for it. But in the background, we'll still do some other things to kind of get everything right.
So I can go open the Razor template, open a WinForm designer, and start tinkering around in there while those other things happen.
Right, and anything that you really push forward and you want to do it immediately, it'll obviously push that to the top of the queue
Slowpoke is back.
and make sure that that's priority. Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of amazing how much Visual Studio really is an OS inside of an OS.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I want to make sure that our friends out there that are watching the live stream, that you know what each of your questions on Twitch, if you have questions about the new Visual Studio, whether it's 2019, Visual Studio Code.
Yo, Nick, thanks for the 500 bits, man. How's it going, man? How's your day? It's going good, man. Shout out to my
But I could go to definition, and you'll see that it's not like perfect, right? Because I don't have a space in there. It's all fuzzy matching, and over time this will get better and better and better and better.
Yeah, V-Pipes. I'm pretty sure the majority of the Christmas skins that came out last year will also be coming out again this year.
So let me show you one more thing, which is live sharing.
I don't know.
So again, I'm showing you a WPF application, right? And so what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to invite Uni, who's over here on the Mac, to basically do a live share for this project.
Okay, so wait. You're going to take a WPF app. Right now, is this .NET Core 3?
It's .NET Core 3 WPF app.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, I mean, a Mac doesn't run WPF, right? Because it's Windows Presentation Foundation.
Right.
He's going to be able to work with it.
He's going to be able to work with it, so let's try it.
All right, so let's try it.
Should everything go well? Yeah, so I'm going to go to the right.
And then we're going to dock to the left.
Yep. And I'm going to copy that.
You really think about it? There's a reason why I love the stream.
Yeah.
Big hug right now, man.
And I'm just going to paste that there. And so he should be able to join.
$20 dono.
Hey everybody. Thanks for your preference. Entropy is increasing. Let's focus. Thank you for your comprehension.
Let's make sure you're on the left side there.
These are preview bits, so please excuse us if...
Is it working?
Playing pretty slack right now.
Can you send me a new link, please?
Sure.
Share it again.
Share it again?
I watch you play more than others. You seem to enjoy it more than anyone else. Have a Merry Christmas. Because I love this game. I always have fun playing this game. Lori donated $5 and said, Dad, please listen, alright? You just listen to stream, you can just donate $5, okay?
VS Code.
One last.
Yeah.
Okay, Leute, wir haben es heute geschafft.
Man, I'm super excited for season 7. Not that I'm unhappy with season 6. This is going to be my
So basically what would happen is if he wants to join in, then basically he can just go ahead and jump into the WPF session and actually be able to debug things.
So you're debugging on the Windows machine.
Yeah.
He's able to connect in and see all the debugging information from local, run watch, and inspect as you would be on the Windows machine, but from VS Code, whether it's on Mac or
I don't know what you even mean by that
Exactly.
question.
I just sent you a different
I'm not on
link, so let's try that one more
team for Luminosity.
time.
Looks like it was updating an extension or something.
Ich wünsche euch einen schönen Abend. Danke, dass ihr dabei wart heute.
So if you go to the live share viewlet there, you can click on join collaboration session and then just enter the URL there.
Weiterleiten zu einem anderen interessanten Entwickler.
We're talking about like the
So, it looks like it's joining. It will take just a second to actually join the session. It'll give me a notification as soon as he's in. So this actually says, okay, Uni's in.
There we go.
Yeah, so what's really cool about this, and let me see if I can kind of scroll back out to,
we got
trying to zoom in, and now I'm trying to zoom back out.
CA2 live Twitch channel https://www.twitch.tv.
You can access there's SVN protocol for communicating with Subversion server, but I don't run a Subversion server. You can do securely by using SVN plus SSH, but I prefer to use SVN behind WebDAV, which runs, it can run in HTTPS server.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the WPF application. And I'm
So I can run
so again, the app is not running on my machine. It's going to run on her machine, and we can work on this together.
So you're requesting the debug is going to come over to this machine and traffic that back and forth. Okay.
So I'm going to launch, and if you look at that on Amanda's screen.
Yeah, you can see that both of our machines are actually launching into a debug state.
I don't know what you shot me with.
But I'm not sure what's going on there.
Use the laser.
Try it one more time.
Hard to see it.
Can you do clean?
Let me try that.
and you can see on my screen, I'm seeing the same build out.
I don't know where all these players are.
In this case, errors. Just in case this was to work correctly, I would be able to just run this app from my machine, put a breakpoint, all without Amanda doing anything, get the complete IntelliSense experience and debug.
Mr. Agent J, sir. Thank you, man. It looks like an I with the underscore before and after, man.
Yeah. This actually opens up to a pretty good question while we're trying to figure this out. From our friend Steam Jockey in the chat room. Well, how does Visual Studio Live Share communicate? If you're on a tight firewall framework, firewall network, what kind of communication should they expect? Is it using something like IM? Instant messaging back and forth?
So actually what's happening is that it uses an Azure Relay service. So this is a service that's available in Azure to basically create a connection. And then once that's done, then it's just basically peer-to-peer.
So and if I'm on a tight firewall network, right, where tight restrictions on our private network, can I just do direct connection without connecting?
So yes, that's one thing that we're working on over time. So basically, you have to have the Azure Relay service itself to do the initial handshake.
Okay.
But beyond that, then you can actually work in a firewall context. Yeah.
As only the amazing Amanda Silla could do it. She was talking to you and debugging and fixing the problem at the same time.
You have to play it with Drake and do the pom-pom. Yeah, I do the pom-pom every day when I'm home after my first game, man.
So here the app is running.
His account was actually recently hacked, man.
Thank you. And I'm going to put a breakpoint, and I'm going to actually, you can see the app is running. I'm going to put a breakpoint. And
he's been on tour, dude, for the
let's
last...
go ahead and click the refresh button.
Yeah, you ready to refresh?
Yep.
So this is a WPF application again, and look, we're actually hitting the breakpoint in my context, right?
Right.
As well as his context.
And I can see everything as well, right? So here is my breakpoint. Let me go ahead and make a small code. In this case, I'm just going to add a WPF. You can see I'm getting full IntelliSense experience inside Visual Studio Code for the app that's running on the machine. I'm going to call it system.windows.
Teach people to be entertaining, man. Streaming and
I'm going to just call it Hello World.
All broadcasting, YouTube videos.
And I'm going to
have to be entertaining. You have to have something to offer. Whether it be
and when the app runs,
yeah, so you can see the Hello World just popped up. So he just did an edit continue on his VS for Mac machine. Yeah, right in the context of our live debugging session.
Okay.
You have to have something.
I think most of them
pretty cool, huh?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, editing continue alone, right? It's pretty cool by myself, but doing that handoff back and forth, there are so many things that I keep wanting to be able to do that with, whether it's Windows Forms, WPF, or whatever other frameworks we support, right? There's other programming languages out there.
In a team setting where people are constantly switching contexts, it'd be so much more work for me to go ask her about the repo, get the code in my machine. In this case, I couldn't even do that, but let's assume I'm working on different kind of application, and then debug. This is her problem. She set it all up. I'm just helping. That was really cool.
So why don't I take some questions for a second?
Absolutely. So, there's a really good question here about multiple screens. If I'm using Visual Studio across multiple screens, if they have different DPI settings.
Ooh, you're in for a treat.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I have this problem at home.
Yeah. So this is actually something that we've been taking on for Visual Studio 2019, and the first preview should show some progress, but the second preview will show pretty dramatic progress.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so everything should start to get pretty crisp in the course of Visual Studio 2019.
I've got that 4K display on my laptop, and when I drag over to the side screen that's 1080, everything gets all.
Yeah. So we've been working on it. So it's coming.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Now, what kinds of performance improvements have we put into live unit testing?
Oh, well, I mean, there's,
got left, man, literally getting shot in the back with a turret, sniped at, got 16 HP. How did you miss that shot?
Algorithm, and now it's basically a linear algorithm.
Okay.
So that's a pretty dramatic improvement. We have other demos that we've done in the past that show that you can load 50,000 live unit tests in the course of a few seconds.
So,
the guy who's sniping was clueless.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm gonna know immediately when I break my build.
Yeah, so that's one thing. We improved doing a
These guys aren't stream
stat
snipers,
and
man.
switch
So
branch
forced everyone into the positions they were
pretty
in.
dramatically, and that was actually in 2017, but a recent update of 2017.
Okay.
So those are a couple things. Solution load time has also been dramatically improved.
Sure, because we've got that async loading process.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Walter in the chat room is asking, does the team debugging with LiveShare work with distributed developers in different cities or countries with relatively slow internet connection?
Absolutely. So that actually
Hey
was
everybody.
one thing
Thanks for your preference.
we've really been trying to work
Entropy is
on.
increasing.
In some ways,
Let's focus. Thank you for your comprehension.
The entire context of the debug session is not going into the network, right? The only thing that actually goes into the traffic is commands. Right? So it's not like the debugging, because it's being hosted on your machine. It has the compute power of your machine.
Okay.
We don't need the compute power of the network, right?
Okay. You're just
and
trafficking.
so all it is remoting of your
down.
commands.
Oh,
That's
man.
the only thing that actually goes over the network, right?
Okay.
And then if there's new information that you might find in, like, let's say a debug inspection, you know, an expression evaluation or something like
Then
that.
it's just that information.
Just that information. So it's actually really small.
Rebel fridges are for sale.
Oh, that's great. I can run it now over my 3G
But you
phone.
can go on eBay, and there are like Rebel sells fridges
we
to
doing
bars
anything
and stuff like that, and eventually their fridges like kind of go up.
Naps. Dot Morton is asking.
Like when they replace the fridge, you know, usually
I think
there's a Visual Studio question.
Yeah. I mean, so we've definitely been improving the test discovery and the live unit testing experience. I don't know that there's anything specifically that we're doing for Test Explorer integration for Xamarin applications that I can think of off the top of my
Zanny,
head.
I think the 500 bits, that hidden
but
mural
it's
is
a good
portrait.
question.
Artist that focuses on photorealism.
And we've got a question here. This might, I think, lead into your next demo.
You don't need permission to do portrait.
AGRTGA. That's a great handle there. Are we going to get the option to either debug multiple projects or at least choose the project with the diagnostics tool window?
Yes. So that's actually something that I'll demo tomorrow at Dev Intersections.
So if you're here local in Vegas joining us,
but I don't have the demo ready to go today. But I had something that's super cool.
So about debugging projects. Right? So debugging experience has been getting better.
It has been getting better. And one of the things I really wanted to show,
pictures in the background are from all professional Rebel athletes, whether it be at major tournaments or live streams or photo shoots, etc.
Debugging experience.
Okay. Oh, talk to me about that.
So I'm playing a little bit of a video here because this actually is an app that is a little bit too big for this machine. It takes like
an app?
Yeah, it's called Gears of War.
That's not an app. Oh my gosh, Amanda!
So we've been working with the Gears of War team to make sure that their debugging experience is much better. And so one of the things that really prevented Visual Studio from successfully being able to kind of make their debug process really smooth is that everything was in process.
Oh, yeah, very man. I mean,
and so because everything was in process, it actually consumed a lot of memory, right? And so what we'll show you here is actually the experience in the previous version of Visual Studio. This is, you know, basically without the out-of-proc debugging experience. But what you can see is this is attaching to the process, and as we start to step through and inspect some things,
probably gonna die
you'll
here.
see that the memory really starts to creep up. It's a little bit fuzzy here, but it's such a cool feature that I just couldn't help but show it.
Oh my gosh. I mean, just the idea of, all right, let's debug a AAA game. Okay, let's do it.
And not everybody gets access to the Gears of War source code. So, so what you can see here is this is actually, you know, we have we're stopped at a breakpoint, but further when we start to do inspection of various variables, dev and the in-memory just starts to kind of creep up and up and up, and we're at about 1.2 at this point. We haven't done any inspection, we haven't done any steps, and now we're doing a couple steps, and as you can see, it just continues to grow and grow and grow.
More
and
info about next year.
You end up with an out-of-memory situation, which is really problematic because by that point you're probably deep into the gameplay to debug and repro the issue, and so getting back into that state is kind of challenging.
And it throws you completely off of your groove. You were so focused in getting something done, and now out of memory.
Exactly. So I'm going to just forward this a little bit, and you'll see that we kind of end up with, you know, 1.97 or something like that. But now you can see we're going to try it again, and there's an option that you have to go to that will let you run the debug symbols in an external process. And today that works for C++ only, but that's something that'll come down the road for other languages as well.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But now you can see this is Visual Studio 2019. You can see the nice indigo kind of blue theme here. Again,
Shock of the game, the new pump.
And we're just basically going to keep the same exact kind of debugging process. But what you'll see here is that the memory doesn't.
Can either confirm or deny.
Yeah, it looks like it's staying there. About what, 470
accusations?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So now we're just debugging the exact same thing, and it just isn't. It's not growing, right? So, and that's because it's basically it's attaching to the debugger out of process.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
And we just made C++ live share support available as well.
That's right, yeah. So that's really cool. So,
okay.
So with C++ live share, like you can basically, if somebody has hey, it's free throwing on my machine, but I can't get it on your machine.
Don't know how that just happened. I hit him for 50, and I hit him for 40.
The debugger is working out of proc. It's kind of, as Scott Guthrie likes to say, it's a great day to be a developer.
Oh my gosh, you've taken the works on my machine and say, here, just connect in and try it.
Right, exactly.
Boomy LOL in the chat room. Kudos for you, Amanda. Super cool. Thank you, Boomy.
I need more water.
We appreciate that.
And we agree.
Yes, we absolutely agree. This is amazing.
So now I'm going to get untangled, because there's one last thing I want to show you that I think somebody was actually asking about.
I think I did see that question a little bit earlier.
Yeah. So somebody was asking about the experience for reviewing PRs directly.
I hate that context shift that I have to do where I'm going to my web browser and then back to Visual Studio.
I mean, especially for senior developers who are bombarded by pull request reviews all day, basically.
Or live streamers who are trying to run a show.
And then they end up with doing shallow reviews because they can't use the tools that they're familiar with.
Yes.
So what we've been doing is working with the GitHub team to create an integrated experience inside of Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, so that you can actually review your pull requests right in the context of the tools that you're used to. But this is such a cool demo. Like, this is something that got cut from the keynote that I'm so excited about that I had to show it today.
Okay. So folks on Twitch, make sure you get your clips ready so we can get some clips of this. We can share out to Twitter and like that. All right.
So this is the normal GitHub extension that you can get on the extension gallery today.
Okay.
Plus a little magic that we're a preview of something that we're working on.
Okay.
I'll tell you when the magic shows up. But if I go to all, you can see all of the pull requests that are awaiting my review, right? So that's
Flush
pretty cool.
Factory, Fatal Fields.
To the office.
I can, I know, right?
Challenge out of the way.
But I can go ahead and inspect
with the
one of
500
these
bits,
pull
man.
requests,
I am
and you
tired,
can see
bro.
that it brings the
I'm
context
exhausted.
of all of that locally into my machine. And so you can see in my Solution Explorer,
It's
I
not even
actually
that I'm,
have
like,
nothing
sleepy.
loaded. This is all
mental,
actually
man.
being hosted in a cloud context. So I can, go ahead and look at one of these files here, and you can see that I get all of the code colorization that I'm expecting.
Yeah.
But not only do I get that, I also get like hover tips, for example, over the data types, and I get the documentation. I also get the analyzer. So I have ESLint running here. That's a static analyzer that's telling me that this is assigned to a variable but has never been used, right? So that's kind of cool. So the other thing that I can do is look at
Hey there,
this other one.
How many subs was that just now?
Oh, I forgot to show you something here, which is that if I do a
21
find all
total
references
subs,
on
but he
this,
just gets to 20, man. Thank you so
can
much.
see that it's going to find all references of that grid legend thing, not just for those
I gotta figure this out, man. I'm tired of hearing myself.
those mentions that are in this file, but also
Sound Blaster, I
for
have no idea how to
mentions
turn
of
it
grid legends that are in files that aren't in this PR.
Okay, so I mean, you're blowing my mind here because these are things that I struggle with when I look at those GitHub PRs, and I'm looking at just the text in the web browser. Now I've got the full context of everything, and I can really explore.
And you can use your hotkeys, and you see the diff view, and exactly. So that's super, super cool. So let's take a look at the other one. So this particular pull request, it looks like is introducing a new dependency on an NPM package that I'm unfamiliar with, right?
Okay.
And so anytime that anybody introduces a new dependency, I really want to understand more about what that dependency is doing, right? And so what I'm going to do is do a go to definition on one of the types that's defined in this new NPM package, right?
Okay.
But this NPM package is just picked up as an NPM package. It's not, the source isn't included in my pull request.
Yeah, I don't see a package JSON there that will point me to it.
And it's not even in my project. It's just an NPM depend, right?
Okay.
So what do you think is going to happen if I do a go to definition?
Okay, it's not going to choke and say, oh, I don't know where this is, or a file not found type of error,
I mean, that would be like the obvious thing. Another thing that it could do is have a minified TypeScript, minified JavaScript file, which would be like what would happen in deployment, right?
Stop it.
Yeah, but what's actually going to happen, if I do go to definition here, is it's going to observable.ts. This is the actual source code of the NPM package on GitHub.
It found it?
Yeah, it found it.
Okay.
So basically what this is doing is it's understanding the dependency that you have and mapping it back to the actual source repo where that source is defined.
Oh my gosh.
So this is indexing all of the code on GitHub so that you can start to traverse these things.
Wow. Now, does that work with just JavaScript and TypeScript, or will it work with my .NET code also?
It's going to work for everything. So, so one of the things that's super cool here is not only can I do a one-hop into observable.ts, but I could also go to another one, do another go to definition on another file, and this is now opening yet another file that's defined in GitHub.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, Martz is asking in the chat room, does this work for Azure DevOps PRs as well? Not just the dependency lookup, but the...
Yeah, so we actually have a great extension that's very similar for Azure DevOps PRs that also allow you to do the review.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then can I do this from the Team Explorer window?
So the GitHub one shows up in the GitHub window itself, but the Azure DevOps one I think shows up in the Team Explorer.
Team Explorer.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for the question, Martz. And then I've got one more question that I want to come to here from Zamcat. We saw live share. Does that also work with Xamarin projects?
Yeah, it sure does, Uni. Yeah, it does.
The one part that we didn't show, with client applications, one of the challenges is that imagine that Amanda's sitting in, I don't know, Redmond, and I'm sitting in Vegas.
Sure.
How do we debug this? Can we see the screen, right? Because that's really important.
The
one part that we didn't show today is that live share will also allow you to like sort of cast your screen or the application.
Okay, so I've seen that with ASP.NET Core, where I can share my server.
But you could do it with a WPF application now. So what we weren't able to set up Uni's bits today, but Hanselman showed it in his keynote. If I have a WPF for WinForms application on my Windows machine, and I'm doing a share session with somebody on a Mac machine or an Ubuntu machine, they can also see the app.
Oh man! So
that'll eventually come for mobile apps as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just traffics the UI over to the Mac.
Right.
I mean, it's just the H-wind, right? In this case, it could be.
Oh my God! I'm so dumb. It's because I don't have it.
Oh my gosh! I am so looking forward to Visual Studio 2019 and these updates. I gotta get it installed. Now we have a download link for that. Moderators, can you do me a favor? We know the download link.
What is wrong with me?
I'm terrible. Into the chat room so that all our friends out there are watching, they can go and download the latest updates for VS for Mac and Visual. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Uni and Amanda. I've learned a ton here. Now, I'm going to start using Visual Studio 2019 on my next stream. I got to get that installed and up and running. But I'm going to start walking over here. I'm going to head over to the other set. There's Ed Thompson over here. He's going to help me with something else on my stream. All right?
Awesome. Thank
you.
Thank you so much. All right, so let me head over here to Ed. Now, we're going to be talking about things with Azure DevOps. Now, Azure DevOps lets you do all kinds of things to help make your projects better. Now, I've been working on some projects on stream, and I haven't written my code in a way that works really well with continuous integration or pipelines. Ed, can you help me out with that? Why don't you let folks know who you are?
Hi, Mitch.
And let's see what we can do to work on this.
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Edward Thompson. I'm a program manager at Microsoft. I work on the Azure DevOps team, and my focus is kind of two areas. One is Git and version control, and the other is Azure Pipelines, which is our continuous integration and continuous delivery system.
Now, I had a question earlier today from someone. Is there a difference between continuous delivery and continuous deployment?
You know, there's a lot of these terminologies that kind of get muddled and thrown around.
Oh, yeah.
You know, some people will say continuous integration is really only when you're building the master branch and not pull request validation. And some people kind of lump the continuous integration term to mean both things. And then continuous delivery
I gotta finish
continuous
these.
deployment.
I gotta finish these before the season.
Again,
I need to get all these. I need to get all these
like,
back. I'll never be able to get them.
What is a deployment?
I don't know why I'm
If you
being,
go
I'm
to a
being so
staging
lazy.
server, is that continuous deployment?
Code
like,
the
if I check in and it automates the deployment all the way to staging, is that continuous deployment? Does it have to go to production?
But I haven't dominated.
So,
thank you, man.
These are all good
Mike, thank you for the
I think continuous delivery is what all those
that.
shipping folks are going to be doing here through the holiday season. Just continuous delivery.
That's right.
So, I've shared with you a little bit about a project I've been working on my Twitch stream, where I've been building some tools for streamers to be able to build extensions to
promote your channel. I mean, dude,
web pages and things.
You just need a stream.
Their interaction on their stream.
Collab with smaller streamers. Share the viewers.
Azure pipelines to build quite right for it. And I started building it so it could go into a Docker container.
Right.
What are the steps I can take to make that happen so it builds and gets into that container? And then it'd be really great if I could deploy it.
Well, let me show you.
Okay, I know where I'm going.
Let's do it. So actually, I've got your project right here.
Okay.
It's here on GitHub. C#Fritz/Fritz.
Is it Lucky Landing?
This is the one, right?
That's the one.
Right.
That's the violator.
Right. And it's an open source project.
Everything's open source.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that because I actually contributed a change.
Yes.
I opened a pull request yesterday.
I don't know what you mean by 20K. Well, there's followers or how much you made or whatever. That's incredible, man.
Oh, well, you know.
Of course.
My code isn't always the best. That's why they made me a program manager, right?
Oh, man.
So what I'm going to do is the first thing I'm going to do is fork your repository. So I'm going to make a copy of it in my account.
I don't mind. Go ahead.
Right.
You can take a copy.
So I'm just going to click fork. And I've already, like I said, I've been working on this a little
Practicing.
bit. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to find this one. I've got this. This is a GitHub organization I set up just to manage this.
Okay.
I'm going to fork it right into there. Just takes a second.
I love that little image.
Yeah,
we're copying it. It's the old copy machine.
That's right. And then after that, the easiest way to get set up with Azure Pipelines is through the GitHub Marketplace. So Azure Pipelines actually has a GitHub Marketplace extension, and that is by far the simplest way to get started. So all you have to do is scroll over here to the continuous integration section.
Okay.
Click there, and you will find Azure Pipelines right there.
Oh my gosh.
So get started, and of course, it's totally free for open source projects. So all I have to do is set up a new plan. I've got this free plan. That's great. That's all I need, and I select the account. Like I said, I've got a couple of GitHub organizations, so I've already got it set up. So I'm going to select this one, the one that I had just forked into. That's right.
Yeah.
And then just click install it for free. So no charges for open source projects. Totally free, unlimited build minutes per month.
On the fridge
and all I have to do is click complete. Once I do, it'll bring me over to Azure Pipelines. I'm going to select the repository that I want to use. That's the one I just forked.
The new Winter Plum Edition, man.
It's going to make me enter my password just to confirm. It's going to make me log into Azure DevOps.
It's my Red Bull in a box.
And so if you've never used Azure DevOps before, you can go ahead and get started, create a new organization. I'm going to reuse one that I've already set up.
Okay.
I went ahead and set one up for
Listen, of course
today.
It needs to be aimed
and the reason that I did that is so that I could
the only
create
thing that's frustrating is that
and so that I could
someone who plugs a controller in and just
over here, this is Azure DevOps. This is the project I created. What I needed to do is add some.
And it's super strong.
Okay.
Didn't want to type them in here.
No, probably not a good idea.
Right. All of a sudden, I'll be Bitcoin mining.
Like, I know I said it should be removed in the game, man. That was me being angry.
Accidentally leaked the key.
After getting completely lasered by one burst
totally
when I was like 100 shield.
So what I've done is I've gone ahead and set up a set of variables that we can reuse later that have those secret keys in there. So
all right, variables. Are those variables that are available throughout my build?
They are. So Azure Pipeline sets up a number of variables itself.
Okay.
But you can also add variables either. Right here is the easiest way to do it. This is a library. I can just give variables names. Some of them are just normal variables. Some of them are secure. So this won't actually show up. There's no way to see this. You don't see it in the pipeline. You can't echo it out, things like that. And that's the password to the container registry that we're going to publish to.
All right.
So again, don't want to leak that out.
No.
Did I already do that one?
So here we are. So GitHub's taking us to Azure Pipelines, and we're going to go ahead and set up. We're just going to select the repository we want to build, and when we do, Azure Pipelines is actually going to analyze it and look at the code that's in there and try to come up with the best template. Yeah, and it looks at your code, notices it's a .NET project.
Okay.
It suggests that we build a .NET app. I don't want to do that though.
Okay.
I want to build a Docker image instead, and that's one of the other templates we have.
Yeah.
Because you actually want to do this nice modern deployment system. You want to build your .NET Core app into a Docker image. You want to deploy the Docker image. And so we've got first-class support for that as well.
Yeah,
thank you, man. Keep grinding, man. These are bare dynamic 990 DTs.
That are running streams want to use.
Yeah, visual deep, man. We're
put
not
down your own
right
little image, configure it with everything for your stream, for your project, and run it.
I'm not mad
at
myself. I'm just disappointed.
Cloud, wherever makes sense to you.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. I love that sort of a setup, but it's not something that I'm super familiar with. So we're going to hope that I don't screw anything up as we go, because the code I write is like old school native code these days.
Okay.
So this newfangled modern world I'm not super familiar with. So let's see if we can get it right.
I wouldn't mind having
YAML. That's right. And here we've got some YAML.
So listen, if you're one of our friends out there hanging out in the chat room over there on Twitch, make sure you send over your questions that you might have for us about Azure Pipeline and or anything about the project that we've been working on, and the moderators will pass them along to us.
Whoops, I missed the riff. Good luck, biddies.
Absolutely. So this is the default YAML for building a Docker image. I just want to make a few tweaks to it, based on what you want. So first of all, the first thing we want to do is select where we're going to do the build. We support cloud-hosted builds for Linux, for Windows, and for Mac OS. But for a Docker sort of setup, I think Ubuntu is obviously the right way to go.
Nice one to use.
Yeah. So second, here's the variable section. So I can define variables here also that will be used throughout the build process. And I want to change this a little bit. I want to use the array syntax instead. So I'm going to set a variable that has a name of an image name.
I don't know, man.
So I'm just going to change this.
My brother already has 2 nephews, so it's like
a value. I'm going to change that from your container image name. We'll call it Brits.StreamTools.
I don't need to have voice.
And
you got to take care of.
I do. Thank you.
Pair programming.
Pair programming, indeed. Absolutely. And then I'm going to bring in that variable group that I defined earlier. So that's got all the Azure secrets. So now I can actually refer to those.
Do you need a hyphen in front of value?
No, I don't. Okay. So it's name, value. I don't know my YAML. I'm learning, but I think this is right. Okay. And then I'm going to set the Docker file that we want to build.
Well, when I don't have the gun, when I don't have my
good, so that's gonna
in the right
run that Docker file, build that Docker image, and tag it with that. And once that's built, I want to do one more thing. I want to take that Docker image that's built and publish it up to my Azure container registry.
Okay, so we have a private registry for our images that it's our working place. It's not public, but it's someplace that we can share these containers from.
That's exactly right. And that's why I needed that username and password. I could publish up to Docker Hub, that's no problem. I'd probably need to authenticate there too. But I want to, there we go.
Yo, Mackenzie, you're beautiful. Love Marcus. And what?
So the first thing I need to do is run
Asian
Docker login, and then I can Docker tag that image again. So it's got that tag. It's going to be called, Brits.StreamTools. I also want to tag it with the container registry in the name.
Oh yeah. Carl Wesley, think of the 500 bits of Joseph for 500 bits. I just saw all these people from Rebel who are just walking in the halls, looking through the window, staring at me like,
all right.
Hi.
So, and let's give it a display name so that it looks nice when we see it. Okay. So yeah. So we're going to build this Docker image. We're going to push the Docker image to our private container registry. Let me just take one more look, make sure. Nope, I missed a thing in parentheses. There we go. So that all looks good. We'll authenticate, we'll tag it, and then we'll push it. So when I click save and run, it's going to kick off our build.
Okay, that's too quick. Oh my God. So, all right, display name that you put down there at the bottom, that's the display name for this step.
For this job, for this step in the build task.
Okay.
That's right.
And I get the scripts. That makes sense.
I watched you when I was deployed in the Marine Corps. You're always improving.
I'll run them locally.
My Twitch/gaming out of me one day when I make it big. I put the together, man. Yo, dude.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Serving our country, man.
The way I think about continuous integration build is
man.
that I want it to be as similar as possible to the development.
I think they should bring back the double pump. Why would I?
Sure. Now,
I was one of the people against it. Why would I want them to bring it back?
What if I wanted to add
there's no need for double pump anymore, man.
Into this and fail? in the middle of it. Is that just another step?
It's just another
It'll
step.
never come back.
I mean, you can just run whatever command.
You have 3 shotguns in the game that can now deal over 200 damage. What more do you want?
That's exactly right.
And then run the test, and then if any of them fail, it gets a non-zero return code. It'll stop. Fantastic.
That's exactly right. And then you can even publish the the test results up into Azure Pipeline so that you can actually examine the test and look at, kind of drill down and see what failed.
Oh, and
I want to be able to use those two golden pump shotguns and deal even more damage now. What do you think?
Things that they can look at.
I do love all of that.
That's fair.
So when I click save and run, what it's going to do is it's actually going to take this YAML, check it into my repository on GitHub. That's why I forked it, because I can't check into yours. At least until you give me that commit.
Until I accept.
That's right.
Give you that commit.
So I'll click save and run, and what that's going to do is it's going to kick off our first build.
That's awesome.
It's going to create the first Docker image and upload it.
Okay, and it uploads to the registry. Now, eventually, I'll be able to push that out to an Azure, right? I'll be able to do a release and push that to an Azure app service or a container service.
Get in the flask, Adrian.
Yeah, no, dude, the game is in a great state right now.
They're currently using Jenkins to build and deploy to servers behind a firewall. Can DevOps
okay,
deploy to those
so I'm going to need you to go ahead
and can, yeah.